Yeah, so thanks for coming. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk and give you some perspective on things. As Neil said, I want to talk a bit about one of the other pillars of TIFCA, which is the immersive aspect of that, and exactly how does that how do we view this? How do we see this playing forward as we go out in time? But I wanted to start with this question, and actually in one of our sessions, one of our meetings, we talked about what kind of data do we need to make sure we cover here. So, question of what is immersive technology? Most of you probably, most likely think AR, VR sort of things, and while that's true, my view of immersive technology is a little bit more broad. Essentially, it's anything that immerses a person in their environment, in their scenario. So. Yeah, so certainly gaming, video gaming is immersive, right? VR and AR are immersive in a different fashion. But even at some point, and hopefully my point here on the navigation is clear, you know, there are points in time, perhaps not yet, but points in time when different things that you use in your daily life, navigation, becomes very personal. So mine does not yet, but I can see a point in time where you know you have a system in your world, whether that's your navigation system that happens to know or anticipate rather where you're going to go, what you're going to do, and make certain decisions or you know predictions based off that. Definitely various smart TVs and consoles and so forth. All of those are immersive in a fashion. But, and I think a lot of people overlook this, businesses. Productivity solutions, design, so the large categories of design and automation, architectural, engineering, media and entertainment, all of those industries are aggressively embracing immersive solutions. Now, I'll be honest and say a lot of what I personally engage with in those sectors is VR and AR. Because the ability to visualize and to collaborate and to do reviews and so forth of designs of different developments in work is significantly enhanced by having that kind of an environment, right? But the point is that even for productivity purposes, for businesses, immersive technologies are being embraced aggressively, very heavily, okay? So, and of course you can't leave out smartphones. Everybody, who here does not have a smartphone? Better question, who here has 2 smartphones? And please be embarrassed when you raise your hand. Yeah, shame on you. I'm sorry, I still don't understand that, but anyway. Okay, so you saw this chart earlier, and we've already talked about what this is. And it's as with everything, it's a graphic, it's an image. Lots of different elements that we are trying to visually say to you. We don't really know what is necessary or what all is necessary rather for this client to cloud. Undoubtedly there are many things missing from this, but that's not the point. The point is not to be fully inclusive. The point is to generate thoughts and ideas. And so within this, whether you look at it from a compute, as Arvin talked about here, or from an immersive standpoint, each and every one of these has some element of immersive requirements or immersive opportunity within them, right? They all play into this industry as we go forward. So, to develop for or to help drive an industry, or a change, I guess, one of the fundamentals that I've believed in, or you know, I've been taught over my career is first you need to understand what it is people want. So I took 2 examples here. The first one being gamers. Everybody knows gamers. If you are a gamer, great. I'm not, but nonetheless, what does it gamers want? Well, they want very fast frame rates. The faster the frame rate, the more fluid the motion, the experience appears. And then there are circumstances like VR where there's a minimum frame rate, otherwise you get nauseous and you don't want that. Certainly they want visual quality. That's why, as we just heard, displays are going to 8K. You know, what's driving that kind of ridiculous number? Well, experiences, immersive, visual acuity, etc. They want responsiveness. And by the way, responsiveness is not the same as frame rate. Responsiveness is, I took an action, I saw a response. Now you're starting to see some issues here, right? If you're thinking about, how do I achieve, by the way, I'm bringing these points up because if this is what your audience is looking for and you want to abstract something here into a distant computer sitting someplace in probably Texas, because everybody loves Texas, right? Yeah? All right. I trust that was a yes. No, but, so you're trying to abstract this compute elsewhere besides sitting right here. Well, now you're looking at how do you achieve some of these things? Well, bandwidth, certainly. How do you achieve things like responsiveness, right? Getting some challenging questions. Certainly gamers want the social aspects, okay? At least a lot of the guys that I talk to who are serious gamers, that's a big part of why, of enjoying what they do. Winning a game is great, but winning it in public is even better. And then, of course, this broad ecosystem support, which isn't so much that the gamers want that explicitly, as much as it is this broad support that enables the gamers to have access to lots of games, or to streaming services, or to some of the things that they just take advantage of or take for granted. So, what do professionals want? All right. Well, shouldn't be a big surprise, but certainly collaboration. Again, what I talked before about is design reviews. So I've talked with a lot of different companies in this space, and there are many different priorities, of course. But among them, the ability to have different locations, different groups, different aspects of a design phase, different groups, to be able to do a design review simultaneously is a great thing, right? Looking at it on a shared screen, fine. Looking at it in an immersive VR experience or an interactive experience, whether it's VR or a tablet AR, is even better, far better. Professionals want to do things like be able to actually visualize in scale experiences instead of just seeing it in a small monitor. If you had an AR, a tablet that you could move around and see a true depiction of size and scale, or VR where you can walk around an object. Ergonomics, so much better to see it in context instead of just in a flat image or a printed image. So again, understand your audience, right? So these are just two examples. They're different sectors, different use cases, but you start here with what is it people want. And from that, then you get into what kind of platforms are people using. Well, this is what we have today, and of course, we don't want to limit ourselves to that thinking. The goal is to go well beyond this, but knowing what it is that people are commonly using today I think is critical. So again, no surprises here. All these are and we do have services that are in cloud already, right? Growing every day, lots and lots of opportunities out there. So with all of these, as you see new capabilities coming out, you start looking at, okay, this cloud, client-to-cloud kind of thing has already begun, right? So what is it that's important? Well, I think this is one of the things that I feel is most important, at least in the context of what we define as immersive. And that is, once you start looking at trying to move things to the cloud or to the edge, is it really possible still to be immersed? Okay? If you'll forgive me, I've got a couple of videos in here, and they do have some AMD-specific technologies, but not for the purpose of promoting AMD, but rather to say the problem is one that I know can be solved. And it's purely a question now of looking at it as an overall ecosystem and overall solution. How do we do this in a fashion that the industry wins and we move forward and figure out what pieces of this should move forward and which pieces, how do you evolve this? So the example I want to give is virtual reality. Bear in mind what I said a moment ago. Virtual reality has a mandate or a requirement for high frame rate. But more important than the frame rate, or as important, I'll say, as frame rate, is latency. If you want to abstract your capabilities of VR into a remote solution, then you've got to consider and account for, or either account for or eliminate network latencies. I don't yet know anybody that can eliminate them. You can minimize, but you can't get rid of them. So now you have to factor in how to design around them and make them invisible, you know, perceptually not noticeable. So without going through a lot of detail here, basically what we did some work with the intent, not of cloud so much as a local machine, but basically going wireless. Get rid of the tether for the moment, right? So all this shows is a traditional desktop where in real time you start encoding the experience that you're playing, packetize it, stream it over the headset, decode it, and render it. It sounds simple. It turns out that even that simple step is rather challenging, but done right, you can get a convincing, almost indistinguishable experience to the user if you design according to the architecture, to the environment that you're trying to play to. So here's a video. These four guys are actually, each one of them are using a separate computer, just to be clear, but they're all running wireless experiences on computers, not on the headsets, okay? And they're all, it's an interactive, collaborative game that they're playing with each other, but it's all just running over a Wi-Fi in that room. Now the nice thing is, it demonstrates that you can actually achieve a low latency, a low overall architecture that is convincing and nearly equivalent. And I keep saying nearly because I know some people will argue purity. I think it's equivalent to the cable, but that's because I'm not nearly as good as those guys probably. And then this one, hopefully the sound's not too high. Oh good, no sound, okay. So this is a similar example. Again, there's a PC running an experience, and this is for the pro space. So this is a virtual studio model where what he's moving around is a virtual camera. The idea behind this is with studios, with producers, directors, they want to be able to have the environment, the virtual environment that they're setting up, but also to have different camera viewpoints and so forth. So it was really just a way of showing a professional application as well as a consumer one. But that's not the challenge, right? I mean, that's cool, and glad we can do that. But the challenge is, let's go a little bit further than that. What if we take that same compute that's sitting 5, 10 feet away from me and move it to the edge or to the cloud? So I will tell you that I think that they're, depending on the time frame you're looking at, taking something that is highly latency sensitive all the way to an abstracted cloud environment can be a real challenge today. Hopefully it's one that this group will help to drive and to resolve. But certainly taking it to the edge in these 5G kind of architectures is not only, I think, not only doable, but we've done this, and that's what I want to show here is, again, the same architecture. The difference is, and we actually set this up and demoed this at Mobile World Congress last February. So we actually had a server running 4 graphics cards, so 4 separate game instantiations simultaneously, and fully independent games. But those games, just like I showed on the other one, they're rendering in real time somewhere in a server and encoded and being transported over a 5G network to a local hub, and you'll see that in the video here in a second, which is distributing it out Wi-Fi to the headset. So no massive development here other than understanding the target audience and the needs and so forth, and at least in context to getting to the edge. What we were able to do, again, this is a video of that demo at Mobile World Congress, and this is all actually running over a 5G network. Much more latency than just a direct Wi-Fi, but the result is users didn't see, everybody I talked to, everybody that went through the demo, did not see a perceptual difference or didn't feel like they had a challenge playing the games, playing the experiences. You know, you look at this from a professional world, you know, doing reviews of designs and so forth. All of those are very possible today. If we go, depending on whose timeline you want to look at, if you want to go further out in time and start looking at things like, you know, what'd you say, 7 years, 5 years, something like that. I mean, I don't know what the bandwidth, I don't know what the latencies, and I don't know what the quality of service expectations are. And those all, sadly, are network statements, so I don't want this to sound like a network challenge. It's an entire ecosystem challenge. Because to make this work, by the way, it was not a question of just a network optimization. In fact, we didn't do much in the way of network optimization at all for this demo. We didn't have the opportunity because it's not our technology, it was our partner's technology. What we did is, understanding the constraints of the environment, we were actually able to mask a lot of the challenges, a lot of the problems, the latency itself, through techniques and software. So my point in all that is, it does in fact take the entire ecosystem. And what may look like in this case, what may look like a network problem, and it is a network problem, the added latency, we actually solved that in software distributed across both the headset and the compute engine. Would we like the latency to be less? Absolutely. Because it's not, we solved it a different way. So it is the entirety of this new market, this evolution, that can solve these problems in various ways. And as Neil and Arvind, as John had said, doing it in an open standards, doing it in a fashion where everybody can collaborate, everybody can basically, you know, gain from each other's successes, is the thing to do, is the best way to go forward. And I did want to leave with one kind of key point here, which is, as I started putting some of this stuff together and thinking about it from talking to different people about it, in a fashion it almost comes off as, once you get everything out into the cloud, you know, innovation itself kind of slows down and stops. We don't need to do a whole lot because we're done. And I want to be very clear that, at least from my standpoint, that is the farthest thing from true. Regardless of where the compute ends up, whether it's in my phone, whether it's in my notebook here, my desktop at home, or in some big cloud thing somewhere, I have no idea. The opportunities that are afforded by new development, new technologies, by new graphics techniques that NVIDIA or AMD put together, by new optimizations of CPUs, or in some cases, and I know some of you guys talked at dinner last night, in some cases just dedicated silicon, just ASICs that have functional, you know, optimized functions. All of that continues. It does not matter where the silicon resides, where the hardware, resides, right? New innovations will continue to be the key, the cornerstone of growth in our industry, hopefully for the next 50 years. We'll see. But with that, I think that's all I had, and I appreciate everybody's attention. Neil?